Okay, what's your question?
Imagism and symbolism are the same,
Imagism?
and symbolism.
No, they are two different movements. Okay, symbolism in European literature started at the end of the 19th century. Okay, Imagism started in 1913. Okay, so they may have similarities, but each one is a movement. Okay, is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, according to symbolists, a symbol expresses an idea. And according to imagists, an image expresses an idea. Okay, do you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
بلش الدكتور.
Okay.
Are we going to take
Today
more
we will
poems?
discuss Kathy Song's Lost Sister and Heaven. Do you have any question before I proceed with Kathy Song?
Are we going to take more than these two poems?
Of course. Are you in a hurry? We will have classes from now till the end of the semester, and everything that I discuss from now till the end is required for the final exam. Okay.
Doctor?
Yes. Yes.
Will we have assignments and write essays in the class?
We are almost done with the semester.
What?
Okay, we will have no assignments.
And we will not write any essay or
Nothing,
proposal?
nothing. You will write a final exam. The final exam will be allocated 100 points. So your final grade will be based on the grade that you get on the final exam.
Shall we write an outline in the exam or not necessary?
We will talk about the final exam at the end of the semester, not now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kathy Song is a Chinese American poetess. She was born in 1955. She belongs to the third generation of immigrants. Okay, so her grandfather traveled to America, so he represents the first generation of immigrants. Her parents represent the second generation, and she represents the third generation. Okay, therefore Kathy Song belongs to what we call immigrant writers. Immigrant writers, this is the methodology to the two poems. Okay, this is the approach that I will apply to these poems. Kathy Song is an immigrant poetess. Immigrant writers in general deal with the issue of home and exile. Home and exile. Exile, E-X-I-L-E. Okay, so what's the difference between home and exile? Home is a geographical place. It has emotional dimensions. It has cultural dimensions. It has political dimensions. Therefore, home in critical theory doesn't mean the place that houses a person. It's not only a building where you live. Okay, so according to critics that are interested in home and exile, and we call them cultural critics as well as literary critics. According to cultural critics, home is a place that has geographical, social, emotional, intellectual, and political dimensions. So it is not only a physical place that houses a human being. In other words, home means belonging intellectually, culturally, emotionally, politically, geographically, linguistically. It also includes language, to a certain community. Okay, so people who enjoy these dimensions of home are called people who feel at home. Now, exile is the opposite of home. Exile means displacement. Okay, so it means the physical displacement of a certain person from a certain place. In other words, it means that a person leaves his place of birth and resorts to another place. Now, the causes of exile could be political. Okay, so sometimes the political situation of a certain country leads its citizens to travel abroad, as is the case with the Lebanese people, for example. Okay, so lack of political stability, lack of job opportunities, lack of economic stability lead to immigration. So the people who leave their countries to settle in foreign countries are called exiles. Okay, so they find themselves in foreign places. Okay, so these exiles realize that they are foreigners living in a foreign country. Okay, now some exiles isolate themselves from the society and the culture of the host country. So the host country is the country into which you travel. Okay, so if you travel from Lebanon to Canada, Canada is your host country. Host, H-O-S-T. Okay, so some exiles isolate, and here exiles means the people who leave their countries. Some exiles isolate themselves from the culture and the society of the host country. As a result, they live in ghettos, G-H-E-T-T-O-S. Ghettos. Ghettos means This word means neighborhoods that are populated by people of the same race, the same country, and of the same religion. This is the meaning of ghettoization. So in other words, the immigrants tend to live in neighborhoods where they live with their compatriots. Compatriots, i.e. compatriots, i.e. the people who come from their country. For example, in America you have Chinatown. So Chinatown is a town where Chinese immigrants live in America. This is the meaning of living in ghettos, i.e. they live in neighborhoods where they practice their cultural, their religious, and their linguistic rituals. Okay? Now, another type of exiles integrate in the culture and the society of the host country. They integrate, i.e. they want to become citizens of the host country. So they don't isolate themselves from the culture and the society of the host country. So they try to become, let's say, American citizens, Canadian citizens, Brazilian citizens. So those who integrate in the culture and the society of the host country acquire the customs, the traditions, the language, the beliefs of the host country. Okay? So this indicates a contrast between the exiles that ghettoize, it is derived from ghettoize themselves, and the exiles that assimilate into the host country. Ghettoize, ghetto add I-Z-E. Okay, so those who ghettoize themselves uphold their cultural identity, i.e. the identity that they have had in their countries before they left for America. Okay, so our cultural identity is made up of language, of education, of religion, of beliefs, customs, traditions. This is what we call cultural identity. Okay, so those who ghettoize themselves in the host country want to preserve their cultural identity. So they don't want to acquire the cultural identity of the host country. Okay, so that's why we call them essentialists. Essentialist. ESSENTIALISTS. Essentialists. i.e. they uphold their own native heritage and culture. The exiles who integrate in the host country become westernized, from westernized, i.e. they want to act like the Western people of the host country. Okay, here we have two groups of exiles. We have a third group of exiles. These exiles preserve their cultural identity, i.e. they preserve their cultural practices and rituals, but at the same time they acquire the cultural identity of the West. Okay, so in this case, they effect a compromise or a marriage of their native culture and the culture of the West. They compromise, C-O-M-P-R-O-M-I-S-E. Okay, so essentialist exiles preserve their cultural identity, their traditions, their customs, their language, their habits. That's why we call them essentialists. They don't want to borrow anything from the culture of the host country. The westernized exiles give up their cultural identity, i.e. they give up everything that links them to their countries of origin and adopt the culture of the West. That's why we call them westernized. The third group includes those exiles who preserve their heritage and culture, but at the same time they adopt the culture and the civilization of the West. So that's why we call them culturally hybrid. These exiles are called culturally hybrid exiles. So here we have three concepts here. Essentialism, this is number one. Number two, westernization. Number three, cultural hybridity. Hybridity, H-Y-B-R-I-D-I-T-Y, cultural hybridity. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, yes, doctor.
Do you have any question? Okay, now according to Salman Rushdie, the exile should not isolate himself in ghettos. I.e. Salman Rushdie as a cultural critic is against essentialism. Salman Rushdie, S-A-L-M-A-N, Rushdie, R-U-S-H-D-I-E. Salman Rushdie is an Indian writer. He is the one who wrote Satanic Verses, if you have heard of it. Okay, so according to him, the exile should preserve his culture, but at the same time he should adopt the culture of the host country. And the same applies to Edward Said, the Palestinian critic and professor of English literature. He used to teach literature at American universities. According to Edward Said, the successful exile is the one who feels at home wherever he happens to be living. Okay, so the successful exile, according to Edward Said, is the one who assimilates into the culture of the host country. But this doesn't mean that Edward Said wants the exile to give up his cultural identity. No, this is not true. Okay. Edward Said. Said, S-A-I-D. This is how you spell his name. S-A-I-D. Okay. Since you read Kathy Song's poems, what are they all about? Can you tell me?
Yes, doctor, can I?
Okay, go on.
They are about immigration in general
Yes.
and how they were treated in America. That she thought that she would be achieve citizenship there, but
Okay, Serene, I cannot hear you. Okay, Serene. Who else? I think there is a problem with Serene's connection. Okay, what are these two poems all about?
Yes, doctor, I can add something.
Okay, raise your voice,
Okay,
please.
Okay, doctor. In Lost Sisters, the poetess left China, which is a symbol of discrimination between males and females. She left it to America, thinking that she will have equal rights with men. She is granted neither American citizenship nor she is assimilated the culture of America. The Americans viewed her as a strange, as a foreigner. So in this case, she lost her identity as a Chinese woman before she left to America, and she couldn't be an American citizen. That's why she says you need China get linked to your hand.
Yes.
This is what I want to say.
Yes, yes. This is right. Who else?
Can I, doctor?
Okay, go on.
In the poem Lost Sister, the author Kathy Song reveals to the reader the story of a Chinese woman that tries to escape her heritage. Through the use of symbolism simile, Song allows the reader to imagine the difficulty of losing one's cultural identity and let him feel the struggle of it. The speaker begins the poem with symbolism. She clarifies the tradition of naming the firstborn daughter Jade. The author uses the word jade as a symbol of beauty and loyalty. By saying stone in the far fields, from the lines 5 to 9, the symbol was clarified. Loyalty is a great value that the Chinese people cherish it. Jade is the mirror image or the image of loyalty. In other words, loyalty is reflected in the account of jade. And it was revealed by the line moistening the dry season. Beauty is shown, yes, when she said, makes men move mountains. When the speaker says, to stretch the family rise, to quit the demons, I mean from the lines 23 to 25, daughters are expected to work according to these values. These values are strongly connected to the daughters. Also, these values another time are symbols for the old Chinese culture. From the lines 26 to 30, these lines shows rebellion. As she leaves her home behind, she is casting aside all the rules and traditions she was made to follow in China. The lost sister is relinquishing the expectations that came with having the name Jade. A tone of disgust is revealed here, as the author describes the sister as rising with a tide of locusts in line 31. It is clear that the author refuses the woman's actions as she is comparing her and the others aboard the ship to an insect in line 43 with her. There are all symbols that symbolize the woman's cultural identity as shown when they are called. The meager provisions and sentiments tell the word landlords, I mean from lines 44 to 48. The sister realizes that she doesn't belong in America. She yearns to China, one fragile identification, in line 54. Can I continue, doctor, or it's enough?
Okay, go on. Are you reading?
Okay.
Yes,
The
doctor.
speaker states that there is a jade link crest, I mean from the lines 55 to 56. Jade link symbolizes the bond with China. Song explains the burden of having the name Jade and further emphasizes the lost sister's need for China through the use of similes, like glistening like the slices of winter.
Okay.
Can I, doctor?
Yes, go on.
The writer is saying that while immigrants, especially Chinese, leave their countries, they did so to improve their economic situation, to fill their empty stomach. They got a very cheap salary a day, and when they come, they think that they would come back or return to their country, but this never happened. Like if their lives passes quickly and they never go back to their home. She is comparing how women were living in China. They were accepting their situation, and they were living with acceptance. And when they travel, they think that they will be living in a better situation, but they discovered that there are many hardships in the host countries. It is not that easy, and they
Okay.
still dream about coming back, but it may be just a dream.
Doctor, can I add something about heaven?
Okay, go on.
Thank you. Kathy's son's father immigrated to United States to work on the railroad, and he had never returned to China. Also, although the poetess and her children are in America, their blood is longing to return home. Kathy's son has an American citizenship, but the color of his body is like Chinese. The children are suffocating in America. They are yearning to go back to China. The poetess feels that the American people treat her as a stranger. She has not acquired the American culture. As you mentioned before, she is not a cultured. So going back to China means that she restores her Chinese identity. That's why the guy, I mean her son, realizes that heaven lies in China, not in America.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, can I add something?
Okay, go on.
At the end of the poem, she comes to the conclusion that it's better to have identity than having nothing at all. Is that right?
Okay, what type of identity?
Her identity as a free person, because she didn't acquire the English language. Um, she didn't get into she didn't fit in the American society. So she was isolated somehow. That's why she was without any identity, because she didn't have the language. She didn't. She wasn't allowed to. She wasn't allowed to. she didn't have the ability to communicate with people. So that's why she somehow lacks her identity as a Chinese woman as well as an American woman. She doesn't have the citizenship of America, nor she is able to be a free Chinese woman. That's why she lacks identity.
Yes, she needs to restore her Chinese identity. Yes, this is it. She needs to restore her Chinese identity. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes.
many immigrants, when they first travel to the host country, they believe that this will be their salvation. This will be the dream country. But when they reach there, they know that they will suffer from many struggles. Things are not always as they seem.
Yes, yes. This is what the poetess is trying to say in this poem. Yes, she's saying that Chinese immigrants in America do not feel at home. They are still foreigners. They have not acquired the American citizenship. They have not acquired the English language, and they are treated as foreigners. So that's why the landlord, who is described as dough-faced person, slips in and out of your key holes. Okay, so as if they are spying on, as if the Americans are spying on Chinese people living there, and they tap into their communication systems of laundry lines and restaurant chains. So they have left for America to have a better way of living. They end up working as servants. So they have not achieved anything. So their rebellion against their country has cost them their identity and their homos. So that's why in the last stanza she compares Jade to her mother. So her mother has not achieved anything in her country, and Jade, who has rebelled, has not achieved anything in America. That's why she needs China handcuffed to her, i.e. she needs to restore her Chinese identity.
Doctor,
Yes?
is she asking the Chinese people to accept their situation in China and to remain there?
I'm not going to generalize. Okay? The lady is dealing with the status of exiles, of Chinese exiles in America, and she comes to the conclusion that these Chinese immigrants are not assimilated into the mainstream culture and society of America. They are not considered American citizens, so that's why they end up lost between two cultures. So they are neither Chinese nor American. Okay, so it's not necessarily a didactic poem. I'm not going to call it a didactic poem. Okay. Lost sister. In China, even the peasants named their first daughters Jade. The stone that in the far fields could moisten the dry season, could make men move mountains, for the healing green of the inner hills, glistening like slices of winter melon. Okay, so jade here is a symbol of hope for her parents. That's why the poetess says, even the peasants, i.e. ordinary people, the lower social class people, name their first daughters Jade. And then you have a dash. The dash means that what follows is an explanation. Why is she called Jade? The stone that in the far fields could moisten the dry season. And I said, when I discussed Perda, jade is a precious stone. So that's why here jade is described as a stone that in the far fields could moisten the dry season. So the first daughter, who is called Jade, is a symbol of hope for her parents. Okay, so she is the stone that could moisten the dry season. So in other words, it gives them the hope to achieve the impossible. Could make man move mountains for the healing green of the inner hills, glistening like slices of winter melon. And we know that melon doesn't grow in winter. So it is something impossible. So Jade, as a first daughter, is a symbol of hope for her parents. But Jade is not satisfied with her position as a woman in her society. Okay, the Jade that rebels and travels to America. And the daughters were grateful. They never left home. To move freely was a luxury stolen from them at birth. Okay, so here women in China are not given their freedom and their rights. This is what the poetess is saying. Chinese women are not given their rights as human beings, so that's why they never leave their homes. To move freely was a luxury stolen from them at birth. Instead, they gathered patience, learning to walk in shoes the size of teacups without breaking. Okay, so as women living in a Chinese society, they do not have the freedom of action or the freedom of movement. As a result, they try to adapt to this mode of living, i.e. to this way of living. So that's why she says they gather patience, they live patiently in their society that doesn't give them the rights. Learning to walk in shoes the size of teacups without breaking, i.e. they live according to the conventions of their society without trying to defy or to subvert these conventions. So that's why she says, learning to walk in shoes the size of teacups without breaking. The arc of their movements as dormant as the rooted willow. Okay, so their activity is limited to their houses. So their duty is to do their housework only. So that's why she is, or her movement is compared to the movements the arc of their movements as dormant, i.e. they cannot move. This is the meaning of dormant. As the rooted willow, so they cannot leave the house. As redundant as the farm hens. But they traveled far in surviving, learning to stretch the family rice to quiet the demons, the noisy stomachs. Okay, so all they have to do is to carry out their duties at home. These duties include making food and other things. So as a result, these women survive in their society. They don't live. And I will show you the difference between live and survive. Okay, what's the difference between live and survive?
Can I?
Okay.
To survive is to just eat and drink and not to die. While
Yeah.
living means accomplishing the dreams and what you like to do.
Yes. I
There's
will
no
take it
purpose.
a little bit. I will take it a little bit further. Do you want to say anything? Someone wants to say something.
Doctor, I said that no purpose of living. They don't have the that goal, long-term goal in order to live on. They just survive the circumstances they live in.
Yes, yes, yes. This is right. I will introduce two thinkers. So that you will understand the difference between living and surviving. Okay? The first one is Oscar Wilde. Oscar, O-S-C-A-R, Wilde, W-I-L-D-E. Oscar Wilde is a Victorian playwright, i.e. a 19th century English playwright. Oscar Wilde believes in individualism. Individualism, according to him, means that man should live according to his own principles and convictions. Okay, so Oscar Wilde differentiates between life and existence. Okay, now existence here is similar to survival. According to Oscar Wilde, life means to live according to one's own convictions, principles, and precepts. Life means that man lives as an individual human being who is completely different from others. Okay? So in this case, life means that man has free will. He has freedom. Existence for him is similar to surviving. It means to be there in this world without having a free will. This is Oscar Wilde. Is Oscar Wilde's idea clear?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes, clear.
Okay, yes. Now, Oscar Wilde says to define is to limit. To define is to limit. So this means that he believes in freedom. To define means to limit. This statement means that a man who can be defined is a man who lives according to the principles of his society. And we know that Oscar Wilde was against the conventions of the Victorian age. And his ideas anticipated many of the ideas of the post-modern age, the age in which we are living now. It is the age of freedom, the age of destroying all conventions, all limitations. That's why he says to define is to limit. Now another person is Edgar Morin. Edgar, it is Edgar in English. Morin, M-O-R-I-N. Edgar Morin is a contemporary French philosopher. He is still alive, by the way. Morin believes that there are two sides to life. Okay? According to Edgar Morin, there are two sides to life. The first one is called prosaic, from prose. The second one is poetic. Okay? Now the prosaic side of life means that man lives according to the dictates of his society. Okay? The prosaic side of life means that man lives according to the dictates of his society. So he doesn't have his own personality. He doesn't have his own individuality. So he lives according to what the society wants him to live. So in this case, the prosaic side to life is equivalent to surviving. Okay? So people who don't achieve their aims, their aspirations, survive in this world. That's it. Now the poetic side to life means that man lives according to his own aspirations, okay? So in this case, man achieves his own goals, his own aims. So this is life, or the poetic side of life according to Edgar Morin. Now if I apply this definition to Jade, I can say the following. Women in Chinese society survive, but they don't live. Okay? They survive because they live according to the dictates of their Chinese society. They cannot achieve their own goals or aims or aspirations. So they lack the poetic side of life. Okay? So the society assigns women certain roles, and they are expected to carry out these roles. So the Chinese daughters have the duties of running issues related to housework. So that's why they are not living, they are surviving in China. Is it clear?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yes.
Doctor?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, doctor, thank you.
There is a sister across the ocean. So this means that one of the Chinese daughters has rebelled against her Chinese society. She has rebelled by leaving her country for America. That's why the poetess says there is a sister across the ocean. Okay? So one of the Chinese daughters is not satisfied with her social status as a woman living in her Chinese society. That's why she has rebelled. So her rebellion takes the form of immigrating to America. Why has she left for America? There is a sister across the ocean who relinquished her name, i.e. she gave up her name, i.e. Jade, diluting jade green with the blue of the Pacific. So she has crossed the Pacific Ocean, and by crossing the Pacific Ocean from China to America, she has lost her Chinese identity. This is the meaning of diluting jade green with the blue of the Pacific. Okay, so the Chinese daughter doesn't want to be a Chinese woman anymore. So that's why she gives up her cultural identity as a Chinese woman and leaves for America. Rising with a tide of locusts. Now, a locust is a kind of insect, but in this poem, the tide of locusts stands for large numbers of immigrants. Okay, so she has left for America with a large number of Chinese immigrants. She swapped with others to inundate, i.e. to populate another shore. In America, there are many roads, and women can stride along with men. Okay, so this shows us that in China, women are not considered equal to men. Women are inferior. That's why their duties are limited to their homes. Now, America is the country of freedom. So in America, there are many roads, and women can stride along with men. Therefore, Jade has left for America thinking that in America she will get the rights that she is not granted in China. She thinks that in America she will be considered equal to men, and she will be given her freedom and her rights. So according to her, America is the country of justice, and it is the country of different opportunities. There are many roads. Okay, so in America, women have different job opportunities. Okay, so by leaving for America, she thinks that she will achieve her own aspirations. But in another wilderness, the possibilities, the loneliness can strangulate like jungle vines. Okay, so she has left for America thinking that America is a civilized Western country. After she has landed in America, she has realized that America is another wilderness. It is another jungle where there is no equality between the Americans and the foreigners. That's why America is a wilderness. Okay? So the wilderness that we have here reminds us of the state of order that I have mentioned in the state of nature that I have mentioned in the Shakespeare course. In the state of nature, the strong beat the weak. And in America, the Americans are the strong and the immigrants are the weak. So the immigrants are not considered equal to the Americans. So that's why America is a wilderness. Yes, there is lack of social justice and social equality as far as the foreigners are concerned, as far as the exiles are concerned. So in America, Jade has expected to have a home, a place where she can live peacefully. Okay, so she has expected to have a home in America. But in America, she has ended up as an exile who is discriminated against by the mainstream culture of the host country.
Sorry,
She
doctor.
is, yes,
Can you repeat this note, please?
yes. I said Jade has left for America, thinking that in America she will have a home, i.e. she will live peacefully. America will be a home that provides her with emotional, cultural, intellectual, political rights. She thought that in America she will be assimilated into the American culture. She thought that she will be assimilated into the American society. She thought that she will be an American citizen, having the same rights as the Americans do. Okay? So she thought that by leaving her country, she will have a home in America. Okay? So this girl, this daughter, has felt that in China she doesn't have a home. And I said what home means. I said home has emotional, cultural, political, linguistic, geographical dimensions. Okay? So a home is a place where you live peacefully and happily. So that Chinese woman, Jade, who has left for America, thinks that China is not a home where a Chinese woman can live peacefully and happily. Okay? So in China, she thinks that she is living as an exile. This is it. So because of the social conditions that characterize the life of women in China, Jade has left for America. So she thinks that in America she will have a home. But she ended up living as an exile. And this exile is not assimilated into the American culture and society. So that's why the poetess says, but in another wilderness, the possibilities, the loneliness, she is isolated. She is ghettoized, she is living alone. She's not living among the Americans. The loneliness can strangulate like jungle vines. So she is not living in America. If we take Edgar Morin's definition of the poetic side of life. So she's not living poetically in America. Is it clear now?
Yes, doctor, thank you.
Okay. The meager provisions and sentiments of one's belonging, fermented roots, mahjong piles and firecrackers, set but a flimsy household in a forest of lightless cities. Okay, now in America she doesn't belong as a citizen. Okay, so an exile who doesn't get assimilated into the society of the host country realizes that he doesn't belong in the society of the host country. This is what we call lack of belongingness. Belongingness, al-intima. Okay? So here she says, the meager provisions and sentiments of one's belonging, i.e. of one's belonging in China. Okay? So the elements of household that associate her with China are fermented roots. This could be a kind of pickles. Mahjong piles, it is a kind of Chinese game. And firecrackers. So in her house, she has fermented roots, mahjong piles, and firecrackers. These are aspects that associate her with her Chinese society. So this is, or these are the only aspects of her belonging to China. Okay, so she has given
Doctor?
up her Chinese identity. She has left her country. So the only thing that she has preserved of her Chinese identity is made up of some elements of her household, such as fermented roots, mahjong tiles, and firecrackers. Yes, go on.
يعني the only thing she still carried from China is the roots يعني because she is Chinese.
No,
The heritage.
no, wait a minute. Fermented roots. I said this is a kind of pickles. يعني شيء مثل كبيس. Fermented roots. Mahjong tiles, and you have it in the footnote, a game of Chinese origin. And firecrackers. So she has some household objects in her house in America. These include fermented roots, a kind of food, Mayong tiles and firecrackers. So these are the only elements of her Chinese identity that she has preserved. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay. So the meager provisions of sentiments of one's belonging. Okay. So these elements show us that she is a Chinese woman. Okay. Now she is neither Chinese nor American. Okay. She has deserted her country. She doesn't want to be Chinese anymore. That's why she has diluted jade green with the blue of the Pacific. Okay, so she has lost her identity as a Chinese woman, but at the same time, she has not acquired the American identity. She has not become an American citizen. In a forest of nightless cities, yes, she is living in a jungle. Of nightless cities. This means that there is always movement in these American cities. A giant snake rattles above, spewing black clouds into your kitchen. We know that the snake is a symbol of poison. It spews poison. A giant snake rattles above, spewing black clouds into your kitchen. Okay, so in the kitchen we are supposed to have food. We are supposed to have nourishments. Okay, so the lady is fed up with poison. She has poisoned her life by traveling to America. She has poisoned her life by traveling to America. That's why Kathy Song says a giant snake rattles above, spewing black clouds into your kitchen. Dough-faced landlords, and we know that a dough-faced person is a person who doesn't laugh, who is always scowling, frowning. A dough-faced landlords slip in and out of your keyholes, making claims you do not understand. So the landlord of the apartment where she lives makes claims she doesn't understand. So this means that she has not acquired the English language. Therefore, linguistically speaking, she has not become an American citizen. She cannot communicate with the American community where she is living. Okay? And we know that language is part of man's cultural identity. Okay? So she has not acquired one aspect of the American identity, which is the language. So she doesn't understand the claims that the landlord makes.
Is it right, doctor, that
Okay, go on.
is it right that she doesn't speak English? Her poems are not in English?
انت ايناس ما هيك؟
Yes.
ايناس Kathy Song is the poetess. And she
American.
was born in America. And she speaks English fluently. And she writes in English. Kathy Song is not talking about herself. Kathy Song is talking about the Chinese woman who wants to leave China for America. Kathy Song is dealing with the Chinese women or immigrants in general who leave for America thinking that in America they will become American citizens and they will have rights, freedom, and job opportunities. Okay, so here she is talking about the exiles. So the exiles who do not get assimilated into the American society isolate themselves from this society. That's why I said they get wise, and they don't need, or they don't have to get wise themselves, according to Salman Rushdie. So those who get wise themselves do not become American citizens. Okay, so the lady who has rebelled against her Chinese society has not acquired the American citizenship, has not acquired the American identity. Now, to be granted the citizenship, you have to speak the language. This is one of the main requirements for gaining the citizenship of a certain country. Okay, so here Kathy Song is not talking about herself. Kathy Song is talking about the exiles who do not get assimilated into the culture of the host country. Is it clear now?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, so here the significance of the statement, making claims you don't understand, means that she has not acquired the English language. So that's why she cannot understand her landlord. She cannot communicate with her, or she cannot communicate with the American community where she is living. And if you are a language student, in the language acquisition course, you know that language has many functions. One of the functions of language is to comprehend, i.e. to understand, and to express yourself. Okay, so those who acquire a second language acquire it because they want to understand the people who speak that language. This is the meaning of comprehension, but at the same time they have to express themselves using that language. So two main functions of language acquisition are comprehension and expression. And I think those who are taking language
Doctor,
acquisition
also,
now
if you want to
know what I
know,
want to say. Yes?
Also, if you want to know about the culture, we should read the books. So the language will reflect the culture.
Okay, yes. Okay. Now, if you refer, let's say, to your grandparents who left to America, you realize that they don't speak English properly because they don't think that they need to become citizens of America, especially if they left at an old age. Okay. Anyway, I will go back to the significance of this statement. So language is one of the major requirements for acquiring a citizenship and becoming a member of a certain society. So Jade, who has left China, has not become an American citizen because she has not acquired the English language. And the fact that she has not acquired the English language shows that she has not become an American citizen. She has not acquired the American cultural identity. Dough-faced landlords slip in and out of your keyholes, making claims you don't understand, tapping into your communication systems of laundry lines and restaurant chains. So she is still considered a foreigner. And it seems to me that the landlord spies on the communication lines of this lady. But what is she doing in America? She hasn't achieved anything great. She left China, where she used to work at home, for America, where she is working as a servant. So we have the communication systems of laundry lines and restaurant chains. You find you need China. Yes. So she has lost her identity as a Chinese woman. She has not acquired the American identity. So that's why she needs China. So she needs to restore her Chinese identity. Your one fragile identification, a jade link handcuffed to your wrist. Okay, so she has to restore her identity as a jade. Okay, so she has diluted the jade green with the blue of the Pacific. Now she realizes that she has to restore her Chinese identity. She has to restore her name Jade, because her name gives her at least a sense of identity. Her name gives her a sense of belonging. It gives her a sense of hope. You remember your mother, who walked for centuries footless. Okay? So Jade's mother has lived for a long time, but she has not achieved anything. Right? That's why she says, who walked for centuries footless. So if you have a foot, you leave footprints behind you. So her mother, in other words, lived for a long period of time without leaving a trace behind her. Her mother didn't rebel. Her mother was satisfied with her life as a woman living in the Chinese society. Her mother didn't rebel against the conventions of her society. So she lived as an ordinary woman without leaving any trace behind. And Jade has not achieved anything. Okay? So there is no difference between Jade, who has rebelled against her society, and her mother, who has not rebelled against her society. You remember your mother, who walked for centuries footless, and like her, you have left no footprints. This is the meaning of footprint. Okay? So neither Jade nor her mother has left any trace behind, i.e. they have not achieved anything. They have not achieved any of their aspirations or desires. Her mother has not rebelled. Her mother has satisfied herself with the conventions of her society. Jade, on the other hand, has rebelled, but she has achieved nothing. She hasn't achieved her aspirations. She hasn't achieved liberty. She hasn't achieved equality. She hasn't been granted equal opportunities as men. But only because there is an ocean in between, the unremitting space of your rebellion. So the only difference between Jade and her mother is that Jade has rebelled against her society by traveling to America. But she has not achieved anything, just as her mother has not achieved anything. So she needs to go back to China. Okay? So in America, she's not given an identity, so she'd better go back to China, where she can live as a Chinese citizen. Is it clear?
Yes, doctor, it's very clear. Thank you.
Do you have any question?
No, doctor, clear.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, Jade, the second poem is entitled Heaven. Okay, as Ola said, Kathy Song's son is American. Yes, Kathy Song is married to an American person. And according to the poem, this may be true, this may not be true. So don't say that, is this really her son? Literature is different than life. Okay? So even if she describes her son as a man who has a Chinese identity deep down, but has a yellow face like his mother, this doesn't mean that this is her son in reality. Okay? So here the sun is used symbolically, metaphorically. Okay? So the sun stands for the Americans who are of a Chinese origin. Okay? So her son is American because his father is American. And the mother is American. We know that Kathy Song is an American poetess of a Chinese origin. Okay? So here the sun is used symbolically. So he represents the Chinese people who have become assimilated into the American society, but he still believes that he is Chinese deep down. So he feels that he is a foreigner, and he realizes that heaven exists where China exists. So that's why she says at the end of the poem, if you look really hard, says my son the dreamer, leaning out from the laundry's rigging, the work shirts fluttering like sails, you can see all the way to heaven. Okay, so the way to heaven means this is the way to China, because in the poem, the family lives in a place or in a house that is located at the top of a certain mountain, and according to the poem, this mountain gives them a view of China. Okay, so this is maybe true, it may not be true, and I don't think it is true. So if you are in America, standing on the top of a mountain, I don't think you can see China. Okay, so this is used metaphorically, symbolically. Literature has elements of imagination and fiction, and it may have elements of truth, of reality. But it doesn't mean that whatever we read is 100% true. Poetry is literature. And literature uses symbols, metaphors to deal with reality or to express ideas about reality. So we don't necessarily describe a certain place as it is. Okay, so here the speaker is a woman, and we don't necessarily associate the speaker with the poet himself. Even in autobiography, you have studied autobiography before. We have different types of biography, and we have different definitions or views of autobiography. Okay, now we have the traditional view of autobiography that maintains that in an autobiographical text, the poet expresses his own ideas, his own feelings. He expresses himself, in other words. And in an autobiography, we have what we call aesthetic autobiography and formal autobiography. In an aesthetic autobiography, the poet hides his character behind one or two or three characters. In a formal autobiography, the writer himself is a character. In a formal autobiography, the writer is himself a character. So that's why we say the writer figures as a character in this autobiography. That's why we may have a character that has the same name as the writer himself. And I gave you the example of Chinua Achebe. I said Chinua Achebe wrote his autobiography, which is entitled There Was a Country. Right? He wrote There Was a Country, and in this novel we have Chinua Achebe as a character, and that's why we call it a formal autobiography. Now, postmodern critical theory maintains that the autobiographic character is not necessarily the poet himself. So it is a textual character. It is not necessarily the writer himself. So that's why you don't have to say that the speaker in this poem is Cathy Song herself, and the son is her son himself. So this could be a Chinese woman married to an American man, and her son, who has both American and Chinese traits, realizes that he belongs in China, not in America. Okay? Is it clear?
Yes, doctor, it's clear.
So there should be an aesthetic distance between the writer and his text. There should be an aesthetic distance between the writer and his text. Now, in romantic poetry, we say that it is quasi-autobiographical. Okay, so you'd better not confuse the writer with the character that you have. Okay, so this is not necessarily Cathy Song's son, and this is not necessarily Cathy Song herself. So in the poem, we have a Chinese woman married to an American man. Her son, who is American but looks like Chinese, feels that he belongs in China, not in America. So the son here represents the Chinese who have become American citizens, or the Chinese who live in America, and they realize that America is not their place of belonging. It is not their home. So that's why the son looks towards China and says the way to heaven lies there or leads there. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, so I will leave the discussion off at this point. We will discuss heaven in detail on Tuesday. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you,
Thank
doctor.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.